Welcome to another Friday follow-up in that continuing journey of accountability. Hey, I've got a question. But first, let's go back to the time where a question was asked and there were many, many generations where it couldn't be answered. And that's the Sphinx riddle, where the Sphinx asked, what creature walks on all fours in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? Well, we all know now that that famous answer is man, because as human beings, when we're babies, we crawl on all fours. For the most of our life, we're on 2 legs. And as we get older, we may need a cane or a crutch to help us move along. Well, there are many tough questions in life. If you listen to our children, they really ask great, tough questions like, Mom, why can't I put the toothpaste back in the tube? Or, hey, Mom, where do babies really come from? Yeah, I don't want to handle those questions. But as a TOPS member, we get a question all the time, right? How do you lose weight? And that is a tough question. We've talked about the challenges of losing weight and getting into a healthier lifestyle. And maybe we can just equate it to the question on how the pyramids were built. We lose weight one step at a time. The pyramids were built one block at a time. And what I think is common in both situations is you have to establish a strong base. A pyramid would have not have lasted generations after generations if it didn't have a strong base. Now, it was interesting when I was doing some reading about how the pyramids were built, where they're saying that probably they used ramps to slide the limestone blocks up into position. But the engineers said, well, for that to happen, to get them up to the various levels of the pyramid, these ramps would have to be over a mile long. And they never found any evidence of these. And then some theorized that, well, maybe there's ramps inside. Who knows? But the issue is that there's always something has to be there to help solve the riddle. We have to get clues and we have to get different information, facts, more questions answered to help us along. But I think the key point that we really need to focus on is that base. You have to establish a basic structure. You have to establish a basic plan to follow. You just can't start right at the top because you've got to learn different ways to make that next step possible. One theory here that I like to always put forward is that you try things, and if it doesn't work, you don't give up. You learn. You learn to try to improve the process. So maybe when the pyramids were built, maybe they had they started off with what they thought was a strong base, but then it crumbled. We haven't seen the failures, we see the success. But the failures are very important to focus on because you learn. Again, going back to the fact that you just don't automatically wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm at the top. Or you wake up one morning and say, wow, I lost 50 pounds. It doesn't happen that way. It's one block, one step at a time. So let's go back. Let's go back, not as far back to the time when the Sphinx asked that famous riddle, but let's go back to the time when you were your first meeting in TOPS. Think about that. Did you know everything then? Some people might think they know everything then, but you're kind of trying to figure out how to go. Again, where's that one block at a time? And when you have other members join the chapter, do you automatically assume that they know everything? They don't. They want help. They're like you were at the beginning where you wanted to start out. But the thing is you don't give them all the blocks at once because they won't know how to put them together. So just think about it, all these blocks laying out into the desert, and someone said, how are we going to get these all together? Again, one block at a time. And there's a lot of things in life that goes along with that theory. I honestly don't understand why people think that quicker is better. Yeah, you might get a quick satisfaction on it and stuff like that, but in the long run, things are going to crumble because you didn't take time to learn the steps going from one block at a time. I remember when I was teaching microbiology at the university, and I could look at various plates and chemical reactions and know right off what I was working with. And a student would say, well, how did you know that? I don't know that. And I said, that's what I'm here for. I am going to make you go through all the steps, all the blocks, so that as you get to that situation, again, you will be able to recognize it right away. I can't tell you why. I can't make you memorize these things. I have to show you how to go through the steps. And that's how we get a healthier lifestyle. We work with each other to show the steps, realizing that there are some steps that will work better for others. And that's why we cannot give up. And that's why we don't judge someone who is struggling on the first step or the sixth step. There's going to be a struggle somewhere along the line. And that's where sometimes I think we lose track, because during that struggle is probably the pivot point that person needs to say, oh, that is what I'm doing wrong, and just not give up, or not just berate the person and say, well, it worked for me. There's many reasons why it worked for you. Maybe you had a few extra blocks that you needed to go to build your pyramid, that healthy life. It is a struggle, but just as the pyramids, once you get that great base, then when you have a challenge thrown your way, a tough question, let's say, you're able to handle it because you have all those blocks to fall back on, all those life experiences to fall back on. It happens that way in a lot of things where folks just want everything right away. But if there's something worthwhile to get, isn't it worth waiting for, working hard to do it? Again, one block at a time. So for that journey of accountability, I did get a chance to weigh in last night. I had 3 meetings last night. So I ran to chapter and jumped on the scale, and I lost 3.4 pounds this week. Yeah, 3.4. I'm still not where I wanted to be from the beginning of the year, but I am working on my blocks. I am working on my steps because I have those experiences. I know which blocks to put first. I just sometimes want to go quickly, and I know, just as I said, quick is not going to work. So that was my journey of accountability of this week. So I'm back on the losing trend. Yeah, that's 1 week, but hey, it's one block, and I'm going to work on the next block. But as I started out with the tough questions and talking about how people will ask us, how did you lose weight or what's going on? It reminds me that maybe there's folks out there who have questions. So I have a challenge for you folks. If you don't know my email address, it's rdanforth@tops.org. So if you don't put a question, if you don't want to put a question in the comment section, why not send me an email with a question that you've been wanting to know, or maybe a struggling situation that you're involved in. Now, I might not be able to answer all of them, but I would dare say that we will, as a group, be able to get these answers for everyone, because we're working together on this journey. We're working together with putting all these blocks into a pyramid so that we can get to the top, so that we can lose the weight that we want and have that healthy lifestyle. So send a question. I will find ways of either putting them on the Facebook, or work them into articles for Tops News, get them to the service program administrators, who would work down to the field staff. We will find ways, because if I get the same question over and over, maybe that's something that we're not addressing in a timely fashion. I got this idea because when I just finished a round of doing SRDs, one of the favorite things that I was able to do was the Q&A period, where I just take any question and every question, and I like to say I can answer them 98% of the time. Sometimes it takes a little digging to find out what the situation is, but it works. And this is just a roundabout way to go back on how I started this talk. We need to ask questions, no matter how tough they are, because that's the only way we're going to learn. Getting those answers, those blocks, those steps, taking them one at a time so that we can get to the top of that pyramid. So I hope you will send in your questions in any manner through Facebook or through email, and I'll see you next Friday.